Welcome to Paper 2 revision, where we are going to be looking at the Western Cape Preliminary Paper 2 for 2023. So I hope that you've had a chance to look at the paper and try to answer the questions. We're going to start off by looking at the poetry essay. So remember, question 1 is always a poetry essay. And you need to decide when you choose which questions you are doing, which ones you will be best at. So remember, you get a choice of 4 different questions. And question 1 is the poetry essay. When you are looking at the poetry essay, please begin with looking at the question very carefully and then highlighting the key words in the question. So a few pointers on poetry essay writing. I hope that you have been able to practice writing poetry essays in the past 2 years. But please remember that you use the same structure that you use for the literature essay. Highlight the key words of the question, as I've mentioned already, and draw your mind map. So the key words are very, very important because you're going to be writing about the key words in the question in order to not go off topic. Very important that you remain on topic. Mention the entire essay topic in your introduction. So if you want to, you can rewrite the exact question, make it into a statement, but we want to see the full essay topic in the introduction. In a poetry essay, you could be asked about diction, imagery, tone, or structure. Most past exam questions ask about diction, imagery, and tone. Please refer back to my previous lesson, which I will put on YouTube, on how to discuss diction and how to discuss imagery. It gives you a very clear method. This can also be used in your contextual questions on diction and imagery. So just a suggestion, when you are writing your body paragraphs, you could have 1 paragraph on diction, 1 paragraph on imagery, and 1 paragraph on tone. Please do not forget the introduction and conclusion. And remember that the length is 250 to 300 words. That is no more than 1 page. So there I've reminded you again, remember to rewrite the essay question, to start your introduction and mention what you will discuss in the essay. The full question, don't leave anything out. So please look carefully at the memo for this question. Read through this, take time to read through the memo. This will also prepare you to be able to do contextual questions. You go through this memo, so it's nicely laid out, diction, imagery, and tone, all the points on each aspect of the question. So before we begin with our contextual questions, I want you to remember to highlight keywords in all of your questions. That is for your essay as well as for your questions. And you're going to be writing about your keywords in your question so that you remain on topic and you don't go off on a tangent and write about all sorts of things that are not related to the question. Okay, so before we start with our poetry contextual, a few points on interpreting questions. So this is referring to our question number 2, which is At a Funeral by Dennis Brutus. You need to know and study your poems very well. This is not going to substitute for studying everything, all the information you've been given. So some of the question words in that poem: account for. What does that mean? It means explain why it was used. In one of the questions, they refer to a poetic device. So what is a poetic device? Poetic devices are your figures of speech and sound devices. Please refer to my previous lesson on how to answer a figure of speech question. And I give you 3 steps there. Follow the steps. It's very clear. In order to get the most marks for that question, follow the steps. When a question says comments on, it means you must discuss. So have a look at the mark allocation. If it's 3 marks, you must have 3 good points in your answer. And if you are confused, what can you discuss? Look at punctuation, look at literal and figurative meaning, look at connotations of words, choose specific words to talk about. Study your poems very well, as I've already mentioned. And if a question says critically discuss, that means you need to discuss and give your own insight. So for your 3rd mark, that's usually a 3-mark question, just a general discussion, but then you need to give some insight into that answer. So please have a look at the questions and the answers. Very good for you to go through several past papers before you write paper 2. If you note in this answer, they talk about literal and figurative. I hope you know what that means. When something is literal, it is the actual meaning. If it is figurative, we are normally talking about figures of speech, a figure of speech. Okay, so be aware of what literal and figurative means. 2.4, critically discuss how the use of the that is just a discussion for Valencia, and you're going to be giving your own insight after qualifying as a doctor is necessary to understand the central message of the poem. Please read through this. So please make sure that you know what the central message of this poem is. And read through this memo answer very carefully. It will prepare you well for the exam. Have the detailed knowledge in your mind when you come to write your paper.